videos or taking pictures and you want to share them, by all means, tag me, because I can't take pictures of myself. So I'm always happy that when people do that. So listen, I hope that we see each other again next year, and that the rest of your day and your travels home are safe, because you know what? We all are friends here in the world of aviation. Thank you so very much for an excellent week.
Thank you, Teresa, my favorite singer. Ladies and gentlemen, if I have anything to do with it, Teresa will definitely be back next year. So look forward to it. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa will be singing at Show Center today as the parade arrives down there. She has a beautiful rendition of God Bless America. So if you're down at the parade area about 2 o'clock, she'll be singing there. And then she'll open the show today with the national anthem. I'm a big fan of Teresa's, and thank all of you for supporting her. My name is Connie Bolin, and Warbirds in Review was my idea 20-plus years ago, and I have been fortunate enough to work with a team of professionals and also a team of volunteers that are pretty phenomenal. I look in the crowd here and I see that many of you here are the same faces I've seen all week, so thank you for making this the success that it is. And we are a success because of our sponsor. Sustaining sponsor is ScottsMiracle-Gro Company. Jim Hagedorn, who flies the Mustang, comes every year, has a great time with his other Warbird buddies. And then Ron and Diane Fagen have been supporters for many, many years and continue to do so. But the biggest thing that you see here that is from Ron and Diane is this building you see behind us that allows our professional production team to operate as they have, and producing the videos and then covering the shows. They are pretty phenomenal. They're led by Scott Guyett, our director. My assistant, I guess I can call Kyle. She is my assistant, but she's the one that takes care of everybody and all of the details. I cannot thank all of them enough. And as we bring this week to a close, I also want to take a moment to thank the flight line and all the other volunteers. I give them, a wish list of where I want which airplanes, and then Scott works out where we want them. And by magic, they're always here on time. The guys move them from all over the field. So to the flight line guys, I say thank you. And also to the reenactors. I think most of them have left now, but they're really being a part of the show is pretty terrific. Today, pretty obvious, we're focusing on Vietnam. At 12:30, we will have a gathering of our veterans to assemble for the parade that will then walk down the parade line to Show Center for a tribute to the veterans down at Boeing Plaza. So all you veterans out there, we hope you'll join us for the parade. And Teresa sings right before we depart here her patriotic songs as well. Our moderator today, our normal moderator is General Ed McElhenney, Brigadier General retired. And he has a sidekick that we're bringing on board here, so I'm going to let Ed introduce him a little later. But right now, I'd like to introduce the video, and thank you once again for being here, and to our Vietnam veterans, welcome home.
Out in the jungle, you learn to listen for one sound above all others: helicopters. Sometimes that sound meant you were going into a fight. Sometimes it meant you were getting out. And sometimes it meant somebody's life might just be saved. Vietnam was a helicopter war. The jungle was too thick for roads, the mountains too steep for trucks, and the enemy moved like ghosts through the trees. So the Army took to the air. Different helicopters, different jobs, but every one of them part of the same lifeline. Some of the bravest guys out there flew the little UH-23 Raven observation birds. Small, light, barely more than an engine with a bubble around the pilot. Those pilots flew low, real low, looking for anything that didn't belong. Fresh trails, hidden bunkers, a flash of movement where there shouldn't be any. They'd mark targets, call in artillery, or guide gunships onto enemy positions. Problem was, flying low and slow over enemy territory made you an easy target. Those scouts knew it. Every time they dipped below the treetops, they were rolling the dice. But without them, the rest of us were walking blind. Then there was the Huey. You could hear it before you ever saw it, the deep whop, whop, whop of those rotor blades cutting through the air. To grunts in the bush, that sound meant everything. Hueys brought us in. They dropped platoons into tiny jungle clearings. Sometimes so tight, the rotor wash bent the trees sideways. You jump off the skids and hit the dirt running, not knowing what was waiting in the tree line. They brought ammo, food, water, things you didn't realize you needed until you ran out. And when things went bad, they came back for the wounded. Medevac crews, known as dust-off, they flew straight into hot landing zones while rounds were snapping past the cockpit. No armor, no weapons, just guts. Because when somebody was bleeding out in the jungle, that Huey might be the only thing standing between life and death. Before the Huey took over the sky, there was the Sikorsky H-34. Big nose, radial engine up front, loud enough to wake the whole valley. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't fast, but it got the job done. The H-34 carried troops, hauled cargo, and proved something the Army hadn't fully understood yet, that helicopters could change the way wars were fought. Instead of marching for days through jungle trails, soldiers could be lifted over mountains, dropped straight into battle, and pulled back out again. The H-34 helped prove the idea. The Huey would later perfect it. In Vietnam, helicopters weren't just machines. They were taxis into combat. Flying ambulances, supply lines, gunships, and sometimes the only way home. Those pilots and crews flew thousands of missions into places most people would never willingly go. Because somewhere down in that jungle, somebody was waiting to hear those rotors and hoping they'd arrive in time. If you were there, that sound stays with you forever.
Excellent. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Brigadier General retired Ed McElhenney, and our guests are all joining us as we speak. Following me, close behind, is Colonel U.S. Air Force retired Alex Afinsky. We're doing things a little bit different today in that he's shadowed me on a couple of these things, and frankly, I need a break. You know, can I get some help from somebody else? And he's the chosen right now. And so, Alex, I thank you very much for being here. And before we go there, he's going to make the formal introductions. The program obviously is about the Sikorsky and the Hiller here, and we're going to get into that later. But I just want to make the first introduction, and that's the guy in the blue shirt sitting right there. His shirt says director on it. His name is Mike Anderson, and he owns that helicopter right there. He also flies that helicopter, but some of you probably don't realize that this is the gentleman who's been the president of this Warbirds of America organization for the last 4 years. He has done a tremendous job. His leadership is exemplary. He's had some challenges. Is that the best way I should put it? I've really gotten tired of hearing the phone ring, and I look at Connie, and she goes, "It's Mike again." But I just wanted to say, hey, this is the guy who's been running this organization along with all the volunteers, and he'll be the first to admit it. And he is a volunteer, too. Highly paid volunteer. Yeah, highly paid nothing. So, Mike, I say thank you again for your leadership. And I think he's turning the reins over here shortly, too, so he's going to be off. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex over here. He's going to introduce the rest of our guests, and I may chime in at the end a little bit. So, Alex,
awesome.
You got it.
Oh, Ed, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here addressing all you folks and to be part of the Warbird family. It's kind of been a dream of mine for many, many years to be involved with this organization. I just love what it does to use these aircraft, helicopters, vehicles as a conduit to keep these stories alive. So even long after we're all gone, these legends still live on forever. So thank you again so much for the opportunity. So we have an illustrious panel today. So we've already introduced Mike. Next to Mike, we've got Wes Sims. Wes is an expert in helicopters, whether it's operational training, everything. He's going to fill us with a wealth of knowledge here today. Next to him, George Kokendorfer, pardon me. Here again, lots of time in Vietnam, amazing stories that he's going to share with us here today, and again, an expert in all things helicopters. To his right, Nick Turner and his entire family. I got to go to my notes here because I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. We got Nick, Jim, Phil, and Kim, who are the custodians of that beautiful Sikorsky behind them, and they're going to share a lot of the stories and the history. And once we get to there, I don't want to any spoilers, but the why on this particular aircraft and why it flies around is really, really going to be important. Go ahead, Ed.
One quick note, Semper Fi, okay? Lieutenant Colonel, by the way, United States Marine Corps.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
All righty. So, Mike, we're going to kick off the program with you with the Hiller. So tell us a little bit about your helicopter and why you chose it.
Well, I'm kind of a warbird nut, I guess you could say. Been very fortunate over time to get to fly a lot of really neat stuff. The Mustang, the P-40, the TBM. I'm a current Tora pilot. If you've ever seen the air show act Tora, I'm one of those guys. And I've just really eat up with helicopters right now. It's the only way I can say it. And I wanted a Warbird. And the Hiller is, in my opinion, so historic because it trained, if I believe the number is correct, over 90% of the pilots that flew in Vietnam, they trained in the Hiller. So what better to be able to share, Warbirds and get to have the fun and everything else. And I found it in Sarasota, Florida. It was just like going through Facebook. Guy said, "Hey, I've got this one for sale." It had everything I wanted in a helicopter. And I went 3 days later, I was down there and I bought it. And but it's just been so much fun since. And the reason I do it is these guys right here. I met George last year and Wes last year. George lives in Mustang, Oklahoma. I live in Muskogee, so I'm in eastern Oklahoma. George lives out west, where we tell everybody, eastern Oklahoma is real green and rolling hills, and where George lives out west, the state tree's a telephone pole. And so anyway,
red dirt.
Yeah, it's red dirt. Grapes of wrath. That's George. Anyway, but we met, and then we met Wes, and Wes is going to get into what the history and when he and his squadron went to Vietnam that I had no idea of, and I'm going to let him get into that and everything else. So we come here and we meet these guys, and we get to talk to them, and they tell us the stories, and what makes it all worth it is these guys and honoring these guys. It's special, so that's why I do it.
Well, I think that's why we're all here, is to hear those histories and the stories. So, Wes, tell us a little bit about the Hiller's role in helicopter aviation and in Vietnam.
Okay, when we first got there, it came over in December of '65. The 3rd Brigade, 25th Infantry Division out of Hawaii got sent into the Central Highlands. Normally, the unit would have had one H-23 for each of the commanders of the battalions and one for the brigade commander. But in Vietnam, the the Huey took over that. The command and control aircraft got configured so they could carry the whole command group in one helicopter. And then we became taxis for the rest of the staff. We went to the Central Highlands, and that was primarily our effort. There was one notable incident in the Highlands, and it happened before I got there. They had a medevac one night out in the Highlands, in the hills, in the trees. Couldn't blow a hole big enough to get a Huey in. So one of the young captains volunteered to take a 23 out into the mountains in the dark, went down through a hole just big enough to get the Hiller in, picked up the wounded soldier and took him out and got him back. And if you haven't flown a Hiller at night in the total darkness, you can't understand how much that was. Then we moved over to the coast and formed Task Force as a part of Task Force Oregon. They set up 3 separate brigades to make a division to work along the coastline up in the central part up around July. And we went into a area that the roads were out. There was no way to resupply anything by road. You had to bring everything by air. So they set up a runway to handle C-130s and C-119s. And we brought stuff across the beach initially in lighters. We had no deep ports. So we had to have an area to resupply 2 brigades that were directly there in case stormy weather moved in. You couldn't get across the beach and no way to come up the road. So we had that runway, and then we moved in to secure. It was inside our perimeter as a brigade. And setting it up, nobody knew how to set up. They just they came in, put the runway in, left it for us to run, and I didn't have any refuel supplies, so we did have a support company. We got in a tent one night and looked at the books and ordered whatever we could use to refuel. So we got 3 350 GPM pumps, 6-inch hoses for the masters, and 3-inch from there, and ran a line right down through the middle so they could land on each side with an 1.5-inch hose. So I could refuel a Huey flight hot without having to shut them down. And finally I could refuel a Chinook without having to shut it down. We had an air traffic control for bad weather, so I had an air traffic control unit out of Saigon, and I had a GCA runway. So one night we brought in a C-130 below minimums on a GCA and got him in and out to take some wounded out.
That's fantastic. Can you talk about some of the roles that this helicopter played in Vietnam? What
Sure.
was it used for, and both intended and actually?
Intended was taxi. We had when we first moved into the Duck Pho area, and we had a cavalry unit attached to us, and then they withdrew it, and the brigade commander came to me and said, "Hey, you guys, I've got to have some eyes and ears. You've got to convert that section to scouts." So we started out looking at it. We mounted the 2 skid guns that we had in stock. I looked at that and said, "Hey, I'm going to go at a point target with 2 machine guns and a quarter of an inch of plexiglass in front of me. That don't look like a good deal. So we got bungee cords, and in each door we hung a heavy-duty bungee cord with a snap on it and an M60 machine gun, and then I had a gunner set on each side, and you flew the Hiller from the center seat. So we then could put if something shot at us, we put him on a point, and we had a moving target circling around him. Much the same thing that the Air Force discovered with the Spooky or the Puff the Magic Dragon when they put the guns on the C-47 and shot at night. Those were same target. You're moving and he's sitting still. Worked out really well for us, and whether it was tactics, good luck, or probably a lot of really good luck, I didn't lose a single soldier. I had one wounded and he got evacuated, but I didn't lose a single soldier to gunfire or accident during the whole time we flew them.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it looks relatively fragile. It doesn't look like it's all that substantial. You talked about the quarter inch of the plexiglass in front of them. How was the safety record for this helicopter in Vietnam? Because we've seen some photos, I'm sure you guys have all seen, of these things wadded up pretty bad. How'd the crews do?
I think we crashed 7 helicopters while I was there. Either to gunfire or mechanical failure. I lost one through a rod at about 100 feet in the dead man zone. We rolled 7 of them up, not a single scratch. Everybody walked right out. You couldn't believe it, but that's 21 guys that crashed in that helicopter, and no one got hurt. They were all balls of metal, but that thing is made to crash. and the blades are really lightweight, so in most helicopters you got enough weight in the blades that there's some inertia. So when you lose an engine, if you can keep the blades turning as you come down as a fan, then when you get to the bottom, you got enough lift to set it down. With this thing, first thing I took the first shot through that front cross skid. It hit right in the front of it, heaved right at me, but it hit dead center and didn't go through the skid. So then we put a steel plate underneath all 3 seats. Then we wore chicken plates, of course. So by the time you added a steel plate, 3 chicken plates, 2 machine guns, all the ammo and stuff, no way was it going to auto-rotate with those low inertia blades. So you had to either run it on as a running landing, which I tried to do, but a rice paddy dike got in the way, and I rolled mine up too. But again, not a single scratch. Nobody was hurt. Hard to believe. So
that's really, really amazing, and a testament to the engineering behind this helicopter. And I think an interesting part of the engineering too is how this was used to train so many aviators. So George, I know you trained in this helicopter. Tell us a little bit about the handling characteristics and what it was like to learn how to fly a helicopter in a Hiller.
I went on active duty on the 4th day of February 1963, and in the summer of '63, I was in primary helicopter school at Fort Walters, Texas, trying to master the Hiller. And I got lucky. I had an excellent instructor. He worked for Southern Airways, who had the contract to train Army helicopter pilots at that time. And I just took to it. I mean, I'm very mechanical to start with. Grew up working on everything that from a farm background. And so to me, it was a pure flying machine. And to accomplish master of it was such a rewarding experience for me. And so when I went to flight school there at Fort Walters, the Army has this wonderful little card they give you. Once you solo the Hiller and the primary training, they give you a little card that says, you are now an official hoverbug. I lost my card years ago. But anyway, so, and the other thing about the Hiller at Walters in summer of '63, Mineral Wells, Texas set the national high temperature record several days in a row. And if you can imagine being in that bubble with 110 degree outside air temperature, the seats and the controls are so hot, you have to have protection. And but anyway, got through with the program and at Walters and went on down to Rucker. Got to fly the 34 for approximately 40 hours for my, quote, heavy lift experience. And I started flying UH-1As to finish up my wings and got them in January of 64. And in February of 64, I was in Vietnam at Vinh Long down on the Delta in 4 Corps, flying UH-1B model gunships. So that's kind of my initial
your
training.
initial path. So,
Yeah.
you know, for those of in the audience that are more experienced with fixed wings than helicopters, we're all kind of, used to, high temperature, high density altitude, how that affects the performance of a fixed wing aircraft. You learning in a Hiller, not a lot of power, not a lot of blade, in that heat. How did that complicate your training?
Well, we would sometimes our ground school was in the morning, and we tried to fly in the afternoon, but they found out it might be better to be in school in the afternoon than fly in the morning because it's cooler and less density altitude. But when you take the instructor, and we flew out of Walters to go out to the stage field, and you have 2 students on board besides the instructor. And it was a real challenge to get it off the ground and get out the stage field so we could kick one student out and have the instructor and one student. But yeah, it definitely was of course, these were Franklin-powered helicopters at that point. I think they were called UH-23D models. But of course, every helicopter is always underpowered. You always wanting more power and needing more power, and so it's a finessing proposition to get those things to fly when it's high density altitude for sure.
Well, thanks so much, George. So talking about more power, Nick, let's talk a little bit about 37 behind you. Why is this in the care of you and your family?
Yeah, so I grew up classical farm kid way in southwest Iowa, castrating hogs, shearing sheep, fixing fence, and flying helicopters. My brothers and I, my dad was a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. He came back from Vietnam, started spraying crops with the Bell 47s you see right here, and he had an H-34. So we grew up working on these things, flying them. Some of my dad's old Vietnam buddies would come to the farm and go pheasant hunting and tell stories. And I remember being 10, 12 years old, sitting at the table with my jaw on the floor going, I don't know what I got to do, but I want to be part of this club. So putting the Marine Corps stamp on me was pretty early, and then the helicopter side was just ingrained in normal life.
Right. Marine Corps stamp, did we say? Yeah, Marine Corps stamp. I'd like to point that out.
Right. Nothing wrong with a little ink. So this helicopter is very, very special to me. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps flying the CH-53s, so you talk about not having enough power. Fly a 53. We've got a saying in the Marine Corps world, piss me off, I'll move your house. The Marine Corps, the 53 would do that. But this helicopter is very special to me because of the 33 Marines that are on the side of the aircraft. There's a brass plate. From 1962 to 1969, the Ugly Angels, who flew this aircraft, and that's what YL stands for. That's the 2-letter identifier for 362. Every squadron, Marine Corps squadron, had a 2-letter identifier like Echo November, Yankee Tango, Yankee Papa. So these 33 Marines is why we do it. This, most of the time you see static memorials. This is a flying memorial. There's killed in action incidents that are the story of this whole, this whole mission. When you read through them, it just really brings things full circle. And our goal is to take this aircraft to schools, reunions, air shows, and educate a lot of the population that didn't have a chance to really understand what these guys went through. There's one name that adorns the side, Corporal Kenneth Macbeth, young, good-looking kid. We've got a picture of him. He was killed on this aircraft, in this machine. So that's why we do it. That's why we take it around. That's why we fly it. This aircraft, to even add another layer of special, my dad flew this machine 11 times in Vietnam.
Wow.
Not just the H-34, this machine. 148783 is the BU number. It's in his logbook 11 times.
that's just an amazing link to your family. So talk a little bit about the journey that 37 took from Sikorsky to your care.
Yeah, so quick station break. 1960. So this aircraft rolled across the floor, Sikorsky at 1961, May 31st. So she just turned 65 years old. She looks pretty good for 65. She spent 3 years in combat from 65 to 68. She has 54 bullet holes in her. The tail had been blown off in a rocket attack, and it had been externally lifted out of a zone after a ground fire by what I flew in the Marine Corps, the 53. So after that rocket attack, they flew it to Japan, to Atsugi, Japan, to the depot, and they rebuilt it. In 1969, they realized that, turbine aircraft were going to become more prolific, the Hueys, the 46s, the reciprocating engines, we need to kind of get away from them. So this aircraft was relatively low on time, had a bunch of new components. They decided to send it back to the States. So it spent 2 years as a training aircraft from 1969 to 71, and then they put it Davis-Monthan in the mothballs. It sat there for 14 years before a true historian, Gerald Hale, the previous owner, Oklahoma boy, he bought it for parts in 1985, brought it back to Tulsa because he flew H-34s with his construction business. Unfortunately, it sat for another 14, 15 years until he had time to start digging into it. So he stripped the paint off of it, found all the bullet holes, reading through the logbooks, seeing how this thing had a lot of history. He started flying it a little bit, got a hold of some of the crew chiefs and the pilots that had flown this aircraft, and it just exploded. So Gerald decided at that point, you know what, there's no better tribute to these Vietnam vets. Let's repaint it exactly the way it was. And this aircraft is in an experimental category. It is as period as correct as you can get, other than a couple modern things that the guys did with a radio and transponder. So he flew it until, unfortunately, he passed away in 2015. A couple of local mechanics and friends flew it for about the last 10 years. I've flown it pretty much since the early 2000s. I've flown it with my dad. I've flown it with my kids, with my brothers. I've even had my grandkids in it.
Wow.
So it's pretty special to me. I was given the opportunity to take over the custodianship of it. In April, we brought it back to Iowa. And it's going to be a permanent Iowa resident, and we're going to fly it to all the air shows and bring it to all you guys to see. It's got a great story, more than I can ever tell.
That's an amazing story. I mean, and the fact that you're just going to take it out to kids to go different places to actually share it with more than us just here. For those people that aren't familiar with this type of helicopter and what it would do, and Nick, I'll start with you, and then anyone else feel free to chime in.
Right.
What would a mission, what would a day in Vietnam in this helicopter look like? What kind of missions would it fly? What would the people be doing? And just fill in the blanks there.
Sure. So the Marines typically called it affectionately beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. So beans being a resupply of food, bullets taking in ammo, and then, it also did that medevac role. So the squadron, the Ugly Angels, came from more predominantly the infantry that would see that thing as, man, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But it's also an angel because it's getting me out of the worst possible conditions of my life. Guys are shot up, blown up, hurt. There's no better way to get guys in and out of a zone than a helicopter. These guys will all attest to that. And I'm pretty sure, is there any H-34 pilots out here that served? Right there. So you want to talk to a guy, if he's willing to talk to you, see if he'll give you a quick spiel of what the day in the life of an H-34 pilot looked like.
All right, where are you at?
I did fly the H-34. I had a Caribbean cruise on the USS Boxer in 34s. Then I come back to New River and transitioned to 46s and had a full combat tour in H-46s. But I got 300 or 400 hours in the 34.
That's pretty good.
So I can give you an example of what a 46 did. But I was in Vietnam, I believe, when the Ugly Angels were there. Nice. So just like you said, our main thing that we did was medevacs, but we did everything. Marines don't have a separate medevac squadron. We do our own medevacs. So whatever the plan of the day was, we did. And just like it was said, it's either combat operations, resupply, emergency extracts. That's where we made our money, was with the emergency extracts. So that was a typical day. If you flew, you got about 4 to 6 hours a day, and spent the whole day, and then stood night medevac that evening.
That's amazing. That explains how it got so many holes in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So talking about those holes, what can you tell us about the restoration process? How, what did it take to get it from that scrapyard where it was basically being used for parts to the flyable, period correct, borderline immaculate condition it is in right now?
Yeah, so I wasn't involved in the restoration, unfortunately, but the gentleman who was, Gerald, and one of his mechanics, Greg, is up there with his boys sitting right behind my brothers. It's painstaking, the level of detail that he went. I have all the drawings that Gerald found that showed exactly where the markings. You even look at the rescue arrow right there. The other rescue arrow is written in Vietnamese language, because a lot of these helicopters, they transported Vietnamese troops as well. One thing I'll tell you that is really cool and very period correct is the angel with the lightning bolt on the tail. So that's the watermark off the 20 dong note, which is the Vietnamese money. You hold it up to the light, and you can see through it. So that was their war god. So the Ugly Angels decided that they would paint that on the side of the aircraft because the Vietnamese feared it and respected it. Didn't stop them from shooting it up, but that was kind of the goal.
Alex, I think we
Go
found
ahead,
another H-34 pilot over here too. Is that right, sir? Did you want to say anything? But you flew this an H-34. Is that right? Where did you fly? What's your experience?
I was in Vietnam, 1965, and flew. I was in 163, and we were. Let's see. Yankee Papa.
Yankee Papa, yep.
And if you received the Life magazine, we made Life magazine in April 1965. We took quite a few casualties. The front page of Life magazine had one of our pilots. He was shot, and he was practically dead by the time they got him out of the landing zone, and of course never survived. So then after I flew this aircraft, and I got about pretty close to 1,500 hours in this aircraft.
Wow.
Then I went back to Pensacola, and I instructed in T-28s, and then I got orders back to Vietnam, and I flew the Hueys. And so I spent a lot of time in Vietnam.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's amazing how these helicopters have just touched so many people's lives and been part of their careers and part of their stories. And by bringing them here today, we're continuing on those stories to keep them going on forever and ever. So as we kind of get a little closer to the end of our program here, Mike, I'd like you to take us around in a short amount of time. Tell us some things that are interesting about your helicopter, things that you think people would want to know, and just give us a quick walk around.
Well, obviously it has modern radios in it, so we can communicate. But it was, when I bought it, it was 56 hours since the total restoration, and it went completely through everything. So moving on back, they originally came out with a 210 horsepower Franklin engine. As like what George and Wes said, a little underpowered, but they modified this one, and there's an STC where you can do it, where you change the cylinders and the pistons, and you make it a 235 horse. So that extra 25 horsepower really makes a difference and helps. It's still not overpowered, but it certainly helps on a warmer day, especially in Oklahoma where I live. It gets hot and windy and all that. It's a little bit different. The rotor system is just a bit different and a bit different design than like a Bell 47. The Bell 47 is what you saw on MASH. So it's a little bit, so it actually flies the blades with these paddles. So when you move your cyclic, your paddles move, and then when you move the collective, it tilts the blades, and that's what lets you go up and down. I tell everybody, they said, our helicopter's hard to fly, and I said, well, it's like riding a unicycle on top of a basketball. Everything's moving. You change one thing, and you got to change something else. But like I say, they're a hoot. And a little bit difference between the Hiller and the Bell 47 is this is a tubular structure on the Bell 47 where this is enclosed and stuff like that. And then it's got the big drive shaft and the transmission and everything, on the top. So there's design differences between the Hiller and the Bell 47. And again, I've flown both, and they're both fun, but these are way fun. In my opinion, I'm very fortunate. I got asked by Jim Cavanaugh and Perry White, his son-in-law, at the Cavanaugh Flight Museum, to come in and help them fly their Huey and their Loach. So, like I said, I'm just eat up with helicopters right now, and having the time of my life, and it's to honor these guys. And like Nick's story and his father and everything else, that's special. And that's why we do it. That's why we spend our time. That's why we donate our time. And, we've always focused here a lot on the World War II guys, but we're losing all those guys and everything else. So now it's time for us to focus on George and Wes and those guys and the contributions they made and everything else. Because as we all know, they weren't welcomed back like they should have been welcomed back. So this is our way to welcome them back and for their service.
Yeah. Thank you.
So well spoken, Mike. All right, Nick.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger helicopter, so you get a little bit more time.
Yeah, this might take us a minute.
There's so many things I know you want to show us. So take us for a lap around your helicopter.
So I will, but two things real quick. Standing invitation for you, sir, and you, sir. You ever want to get inside this thing, I'll fly it wherever, and you're always welcome in it. Okay? Come fly with me. I want to invite Greg. Greg, can you come down real quick? I'm going to put you on the spot. So Greg is he sprays with these helicopters, but he has spent the majority of his adult life restoring and maintaining this thing. So if there's a question you have that I don't know, he knows it. He knows a lot about this helicopter. So 1961, May 31st, you came across the flight line at Stratford, Connecticut through the Sikorsky factory. It's got an 1820 round engine, right cyclone, 1,525 horsepower, 9 cylinders. It's got about an inch fuel line, 70 gallons an hour when I'm cruising 30 to 32 inches of manifold pressure. She sits about 12.5 foot tall, 56-foot rotor diameter. Unlike the Hiller, this thing autos like a dream. You've got roughly 300-pound rotor blades that create a ton of inertia. And I'll tell you, this thing could take a beating. It's a flying barn door, so you could shoot a lot off of them. My dad, I think, crashed 5, got shot down 5 times, but every time he was able to get it to the ground because the engine was still providing power. Shoot a couple of the jugs off. They would put a steel plate all the way across the bottom because this is a very vulnerable area where the oil cooler is.
Yeah.
And they'd have M60 machine guns, aerial observer, door gunner out this side, and then one out the other side. We actually have a replica M60 in there. She's built to go on the boat. All the rotor blades fold, the tail folds. Typical Marine Corps H-34 squadron had 24 aircraft in it. So if you can imagine putting 24 airplanes on an aircraft carrier, you got to stack them in there like Tetris. And you can really tighten these things up and get them pretty close. So if you look down the side of the fuselage, you might see a few patches, and Greg's going to point them out to you, that have no earthly reason for being there other than that they cover a damn bullet hole, right? So they work their way all the way back around. There's one on the tail that actually goes through both sides. You can see right where it went through. There was quite a bit of a shortage of aluminum when they were building these aircraft. So this aircraft is actually skinned in magnesium, which is cool cool from the standpoint that we were able to find an alternative. Terrifying from the standpoint that it's essentially a flying flash bulb.
Yeah.
So if you catch it on fire, the joke is you're going to be able to fly it straight to the crash because it's going to burn up on the way down. So, Greg, what did I forget? Anything about the restoration? I mean, you guys went through this thing front to back. They found an M60 shell casing down in one of the fuel bilges. I still have it. We've got all the dates, the logbooks, the times when it was shot down. This thing was kind of a hangar queen. I know my dad was a maintenance test pilot, so he tested it a lot, and a lot of guys did too, until they finally got engines and gearboxes and everything really singing right. But the real interesting aircraft, the reason why this aircraft survives, and it's one of the very few that did, is because it was so low on hours. This aircraft's only got like 5,300 hours on it. Wow. So relatively speaking, in airframes wise, how many hours you got on that?
Well, it's probably 2,000 or 3,000.
Okay. But like that C-47 over there had 16,000 hours on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
So you talked a little bit about the engine sitting up front here.
Right.
How do you get the power from the nose of the helicopter all the way up to the rotor blades and all the way out to the tail? I mean, I'm looking at the geometry here, and it seems kind of crazy.
So the engine sits at a 22-degree angle. It's got a hydromechanical clutch that you flip with a switch. You run the RPMs up to about 1,800 RPM. You engage the switch, and then you kind of treat it like your motorcycle. You put in throttle, you release the clutch, and you just drive away. It's the same thing with this. You get it up until the clutch system engages the rotors, and they're married up. Shut the clutch off, and then you've got a full engagement. So the rotor system goes right up through here. It's air-cooled. The 1820 is in multiple aircraft. I mean, all those T-28s out there, the B-25s, that Greyhound right there, the C2, C1, that's all got 1820s in it. So that drive shaft would go right up between the pilot, co-pilot, into the main gearbox, and then it would work its way all the way down the spine to the intermediate gearbox, and then up to the tail rotor gearbox to the tail rotor. 54 grease zerks on the rotor head. It's got dampers that have shock, you know, like for lead and lag. Sit really high. Your observation is great. You have a little bit of susceptibility to dynamic rollover or ground resonance because you sit so high, so you got to be very careful when you land it. You got to fly it all the way down to strut compression, so just when the wheels touch, you still got to let the collective out slow and kind of let it squat. But it's built to go on a boat, so I don't know, I'm hogging the mic. What else did you guys do during the restoration? Greg, anything that I forgot?
Well, I wasn't really involved with the initial restoration, but I guess I've been on board since 2001, and changed a couple engines and pulled the gearboxes and done maintenance on them and stuff. But it's 12 hours of maintenance every hour of flight.
That's literally was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
How much of that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot of work to keep a helicopter like this flying, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What's the parts availability? How much is still out there to keep this helicopter
they're
flying?
out there. They're hard to find. What it really comes down to is finding good paperwork. You know, can you prove the paperwork all the way back to when the component was new? So there's about 20, maybe 22 of these still flying in the United States. Half of them have been converted to turbine engines, and they've got 2 PT6s in the front of them, and they're great lifters. There's 3 or 4 companies that use those because they'll lift 5,000 pounds from the hook, and that's what my dad did forever with the piston engine one. It would still lift 5,000 pounds. It's just your power to weight and high density altitude. You're cheating death sometimes flying that. And then there's a guy in Brewster, Washington, he's got 11 of these that are flying. He uses them for drying cherries, believe it or not. They found that this rotor diameter is perfect. It puts out just the perfect amount of air to go around. They fly around the farms and blow off all the moisture on the cherries so they don't rot or split or fall off.
What a great usage to just keep these things flying, and they're still relevant today in those types of missions. I mean, all over these years, just finding new ways. What's about your flight time in this? How much fuel and how long?
So it's 266 gallons. I burned about 70 gallons an hour. I typically don't like to fly more than about 2 hours, mostly because a helicopter pilot's bladder is only about 45 minutes anyway. These guys will tell you about that. But 2 hours is typically what we like to fly.
That's amazing. And yeah, and you can really get a good look when you folks come up and see the hook and see all the patches on the aircraft that really tell the story, which is why the aircraft is here. We keep getting back to that, is to tell those stories. So at this point, Ed, anything that I missed, or do you want to start going out to the audience for questions?
No, I want to ask Nick about flying the airplane. In Vietnam it was obviously pretty warm, but how about cold weather operations? Do you have problems with?
I mean, she takes a while to warm up, to get the cylinder head temperature and the oil to warm up. This big old oil cooler right here, this thing holds 10.5 gallons of oil, 120 weight oil. So a lot of times we'll cheat. We run a pre-oiler, and we'll put the little kerosene bun heaters, and we'll put a piece of plywood back here so it pushes all the heat right to that oil. But that's the major key thing, is keeping that oil warm. But this aircraft loves to fly when it's cold. I mean, it flies phenomenal. Tons of power.
Okay, how about weather? How about instrument conditions? You're not always flying VFR in this thing, and nor did they do that in Vietnam.
Right.
So how does it do IFR?
It's pretty stable. I mean, it's a very stable aircraft. Unfortunately, being an experimental category, I'm not allowed to fly it at night or in instrument conditions, but I would have no problems flying this in instruments. I mean, it's very stable, very smooth. It's got ASE, stick trim. We've got gyros in it, but yeah, it flies pretty good.
How's it compared to the 53?
Oh, well, now you're talking apples and oranges.
Yeah, I thought so.
Igor Sikorsky got a lot of helicopters right, and there are very few things that they did differently, even up to the modern Black Hawk. There's a lot of very, very close similarities with the rotor systems. They changed the way that they start aircraft between hydraulic motors, electric motors, or even air to start the engines. But when you're talking about the basic mechanical linkages of drive shafts and how they hook up with Thomas couplings and gearboxes, very, very similar. They didn't change it. But the CH-53 is a beast.
Yeah, the beast. If y'all don't know, 53 is the sky crane is what they called it. Yeah. And heavy lift, as you said.
Just a semi truck. It's nothing sexy. It's just a semi truck.
But it does a job well.
Oh,
it really does.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why this thing still exists today. Is it got plucked out of that LZ.
That's right.
And brought back. So.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got. How about you want to open up?
Yeah. Anything yet for you gentlemen? Go.
I just wanted to point out that the rotor system on this, Sikorsky come up with the fully articulated rotor system. And so it has, the blades will lead and lag, and they'll flap, and they're fully articulated. That's the term. But he was talking about the ground resonance, and so in flight school, they were very specific to train you how not to get into the ground resonance, because once you get this into ground resonance, it'll literally tear itself apart.
Yeah.
So if you land hard on one side or whatever, those blades start to hunt and seek, and they'll go out of balance, and that's a real hazard.
Sounds like a really, really bad day.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Mike, Wes, anything to add?
Well, basically, our mission for a day in the life of the Hiller, I usually flew the first light recon to go out and check the area over to low down the trails to see if there's footprints on the trails, see if there's been any movement during overnight. In the middle of the day, if we had a combat assault to put in, we would lead in with a pink team. We always flew with a pink team. We didn't have enough to fly two Hillers at the same time, so I had a gunship high behind me and a Hiller down at about 100 feet flying along, checking out. Check village out. Sometimes you come across a village that there's too many young men in it, so you wonder what's there. They had a habit of disappearing. We'd see a bunch of young men in the village. We'd put a company in, couldn't find anybody. Then we decided something's happening. So we discovered they had dug little holes, spider holes. They had a fake bush on a stick. They'd drop in the spider hole, pull the bush on top of them, and sit in the hole. So or we decided then we'd put a company in with rations, sit there for a day or two. The hole got too small; they'd start to pop out. That's when we picked them back up.
And you'd be able to see them from the hiller.
We'd see. No, we couldn't see it. We could see the men were in the village.
Right.
When we got there, they're not there.
Yeah, they're
What
not, they're
happened?
gone.
And for a while, we wondered. Then we found out that was what was happening, and after that, we used the spider holes. And then we did a last light recon, which I never did because I had to go to staff meetings. But that was a dangerous mission because they figured if they shot at you at night, you weren't going to get back out. We didn't do much night operations at that point in time. I didn't have the equipment to do it.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. So with a little bit of time that we have left, what do all you folks want to know? What questions do we have in the audience for this illustrious group of helicopter professionals? All right, we got one over here on the right.
I have a question for Mr. Kokendoffer. First of all, thank you for your service, all of you, 100%. You're the reason that we get to have air shows and walk around and enjoy all of this amazing history. But I've had the honor of being your friend now for almost a decade, George, and I cherish your friendship. You're 86 years old and still like a tiger cat, and that's awesome. You give us all inspiration to move forward in our flying careers as well. But what I would like to ask you is go through the emotions of being an 18-year-old kid going into combat. You don't know if you're going to come back home. You obviously came back home, but give us a little idea of just what the emotion, what your heart felt. I mean, you were just a kid from a farm in Oklahoma flying helicopters 10,000 miles away.
Well, I actually was 23 years old and by the time I got to Vietnam. And it was an experience that you don't really know how to explain it. But when I came back from Vietnam, I had another year obligation. So when I got out of the Army in February the 3rd, 1966, it was about 8 years for me to get over the experience. In retrospect, I had a pretty good case of PTSD. And in 66, they didn't call it PTSD. I mean, there was hardly anybody talking about PTSD. But I guess the best description was you just internalized your fear and tried to break through it and just keep on doing the job.
Well, thanks for all that you and your entire generation, everyone that went over there, did for all of us. Because to echo his sentiment, you're the reason we're able to have the freedom and be over here doing all the things we are. So, all right, anyone else in the audience? We've got another one over here. Go ahead, sir. Are you flying the 834 today or tomorrow? And if so, what time?
We're planning to leave around noon tomorrow. If the air tower will let me, I'll rip some gutters off. I got good insurance. We'll take some hats off.
All right, got another question over here up top. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I actually have two. Why does this have to be experimental if it was built in a factory?
So it's experimental because I don't have to comply with a lot of the FAA rules if I put it into a different type rating certification. So I can keep it period correct, and I don't have to modernize it. So it's a good way of telling the FAA, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, that was my other question. You said you had to certify back to the cradle on the parts that you put on it.
Right.
Since you're flying it as experimental, you still have to do that.
To do it correctly, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Great question. Got another one down here.
Yeah, I remember training on the 23, and I remember the collective would get very heavy, and you'd have to pop it to get it to lighten up. You still have that issue with your aircraft?
No, but if you get a little bit behind the power curve or what, you can milk that collective a little bit and kind of you can milk it a little bit and kind of get some of your power. But no, I haven't experienced that. I've never got it stuck or anything like that.
Did either of you guys have that issue where the collective would get heavy and you'd pop it and then it'd lighten up?
No, never had that on mine. We had a 540 engine, 305 horsepower on the G model. Sort of the philosophy of if you put enough power on a lawnmower, it would fly. And so But I never had that. The stick wobbles. It flies different than any other helicopter with the stick because of the paddles. You have to sort of make a big C with your hand and let the stick wobble around in your hand and you move that C around. You can't grip the stick because it'll just shake your hand apart.
Well, I got another one on the end, I think, and I think this is going to be our last question.
All right, I think I found a Marine down here, by the way. Yeah,
there you go.
Just looking at his shirt, and it says Vietnam veteran. So, sir, thank you for your service, and you got the mic.
Hi, I just wanted to know from that Marine pilot there, of course I've flown in many of these in combat missions, and I actually got medevaced out on one of these. So my question is, how does it react during the monsoons?
During the monsoons? Well, you try not to fly in them. That would be the first thing.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it rains so much, but you guys managed to come in and get us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine Sikorsky and what I flew, the 53, would be very similar. So
right.
Big, heavy wind gusts, this thing will handle it pretty well.
I see.
The thing that you don't want to do is take off with a massive tailwind. So as long as you can point your your nose into the wind when you're landing and taking off, she's going to get you up and out of there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Come by and see this thing.
Are there any more questions out there? I got time for one more short one. We got one right up front here.
Thank you. I'm Steve Jones. I want y'all to ask George, our mutual friend Russell Armstrong, let him do something special on July 4th, and I'd like him to tell you what that was.
All right, George, you get to finish us off here.
Okay, I met Randy Ball up here last year. He invited me to come down to Athens, Texas for Thunder Over East Texas Air Show. It was July the 3rd and 4th, I believe. And I had the golden opportunity to actually get in the right seat of a UH-1H. And with my physical condition, I had to be boosted up there. I used to just hop right up there when I was younger. But anyway, I got to ride right behind the pilot, and he also invited me to come down. We flew around a while and had a good time flying, and he invited me back down whenever I showed up at Sulphur Springs, Texas. We might go fly that bird.
That sounds fantastic.
Awesome. And it was painted up in the Outlaws Squadron, and George was a member.
Of the Outlaws?
Yeah, he was a member of the Outlaws, so that was special for
When I went over to Vietnam, I was in the 114th, which was Knights of the Air, and I was in the gunship platoon, which was called the Cobra platoon. But in the 62nd Aviation Company was formed up out of the 11th Air Assault Division at Fort Benning, came over as the 62nd Aviation Company. And they were the Outlaws, and their gunships were called Mavericks. So I got infused, nice Army term, infused into the 62nd. So I flew Slick Outlaws, and that's how that helicopter's painted up.
Fantastic. And I can really think of a better way to finish up. So on behalf of Warbirds in Review and our entire audience, I'd like to thank Mike, Wes, George, and Nick, and Nick's entire family for, bringing the helicopters here, but answering the questions and continuing those stories and legacies for years to come. So, gentlemen, family, thank you so much for being here. Let's give them a big round of applause.
All right, I see some people standing up. Well, I'm going to give some people a chance to stand up also, and I do this on every one of my programs.
Sitting too long.
And I'm going to do something a little bit different right now and just say, hey, if we could have the Vietnam veterans first stand up, please. And I know look at that. He's getting out of his scooter and he's standing up. So first of all, welcome home. And thank you for your service over there. It was a very, very difficult time. And you guys keep standing. Now I want the rest of the vets to stand up so we can say thank you to those veterans that are here. Again, thank you. That's all I can say. And now, this is the last program that we've got here. So, Alex, good job. Okay, I think I give him a thumbs up.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this legacy.
Yep, and now I just got to continue with a couple other quick thank yous, and that begins with our team here. And as Connie alluded to earlier, hey, that starts with the ground crew, and I can just name the names, the flight guys. You just keep going. You know, we've got Ben, we've got Kim, we've got the air-to-air TV guys back there. You know, we've got Lance, we've got Rich, we've got Ron. It is a team that makes this happen, and we all work hard at it, and we've got some real expertise. And I have to say, thank you to those folks very much. And last but not least, and Connie's not here, but she's getting ready for the parade this afternoon. But I got to thank Connie for starting this program 25 years ago. And bringing me into her crazy life. So thank you, folks. I hope you all come back next year. Veterans, if you want to march in the parade, that's going to be here about 12:30 or so. We're going to take you down to the Center Plaza. But it has been a distinct honor for me also to talk to folks like this, to honor these people, to remember. And that's our job. You can see here, hey, history, heroes, heritage. You've seen it all this year. You know, we started with a P-40, and now we're ending with a helicopter. But the important thing is, remember those bullet holes, okay? Remember those men and women.
Yep, so come on down, take a closer look at the helicopters, and talk to all these folks. Thanks for attending today.
Thank you.
Inspired by the veterans in my family, I started the Gary Sinise Foundation in June of 2011. It has been my honor to support and uplift our nation's defenders, our active duty service members, first responders, veterans, and the families who sacrifice alongside them. This has all been possible thanks to our incredible supporters. I am grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity. You help us to bring hope and healing to so many. To all of you, and to our nation's heroes who are serving, have served, and to your families, thank you. To learn more, visit GarySiniseFoundation.org.
"40 years ago, a community came together with a shared purpose: to train better, fly smarter, and make aviation safer. From humble beginnings to a worldwide network, the North American Trainer Association has shaped generations of pilots and instructors. Flying is a discipline. It's the early mornings, the checklists repeated, the lessons learned again and again until precision becomes instinct. And safety? Safety is an attitude, a mindset carried into every decision, every flight, every generation we train. For 40 years, the North American Trainer Association has stood for excellence, not just in how we fly, but in how we think, prepare, and lead. Because in aviation, discipline builds skill, and attitude saves lives. Here's to 40 years of commitment and to the future we'll keep shaping together.
The name Jane is actually the name of his wife. Making it exactly how it was flown by actually Rick Marshall, who was the AA Spider.
Keeping these airplanes flying preserves stories that will no longer be told by the greatest generation. Through restorations and flying, we were able to continue their legacy and remember their sacrifices. And that's really the most important thing when you're flying these airplanes. When you go somewhere, you have the responsibility to share with people what they did, and that these aren't just airplanes, they help save our freedom.
It's hard to imagine a more podcast-worthy aviator than Robert Hoot Gibson. He's a degreed aeronautical engineer, a naval aviator with 300-plus combat missions, graduate Top Gun, graduate Naval Test Pilot School, NASA astronaut commander with 5 space shuttle missions, chief NASA astronaut, Southwest Airlines captain, world champion unlimited class air race champion. A new season of Hoot's Hangar, the exclusive podcast produced in Hoot's home studio, will shortly be in production. In this series, Hoot and an endless string of compelling guests cover all things aero combat flying, space travel, air racing, aircraft design and performance, high-profile accident investigations, RC modeling, home building, and more. Join Hoot Gibson and his guests in Hoot's Hangar, the most compelling podcast in aerospace. Now, get unlimited access to all episodes for less than a trip to the coffee bar. Just $9.95 a year. Just go to airtoairtv.com to gain access and subscribe.
Buck 1, Warhawk 40, second cam has fragged. Warhawk 40, Fox 1, have you loud and clear. Enemy vehicle, IVO, Blue Mountain runway.
As much as I'm looking forward to having a successful mission, cleaning all this up and getting back, it's kind of sad that this could be the last time that these guns ever fire again.
This side, hot, ready to go. That side is moments away from all 6 ripping down range.
I'm freeze hot. 100 feet MSL, 5, vehicle convoy, 6, target location, Blue Mountain runway, 7. heading 200. Check as 200, copy all. Here, arm and hot.
I guess I was fairly apprehensive the whole time that I was flying in combat. And I guess there's good reason to feel that way. I'm there to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm, and therefore they would like to damage me. And I was 25 years old at that time. Top Gun was really a thrill. I must have done well in actual combat because at the time I was just a lieutenant junior grade, which is a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I may have been the very first lieutenant junior grade to go through Top Gun. STS-27 was my third launch, and it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. Well, I will never forget, we maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing, and I looked at what I was seeing, and I said to myself, we are gonna die. Well, there's a lot of piloting that goes into it, a tremendous amount of piloting that goes into it, because you're going to wind up passing other airplanes. You're going to get in a duel with another airplane that's fairly closely matched. So there's a ton of satisfaction from doing that. And hey, let's just talk about the racing itself. It's fun to fly low, but it's dangerous.
In 1937, Japan began a war of conquest to gain control of China's vast natural resources. Japan needed them to supply its planned conquest of the entire Pacific region. By 1941, estimates are some 1 million Japanese ground troops were committed to this effort, and the Imperial Air Force had begun a merciless campaign of indiscriminate bombings of Chinese cities and civilian centers. The loss of innocent life and suffering was incalculable. China's Air Force was all but non-existent. There was no way to defend the cities. But in 1941, Claire Chennault, a retired U.S. Army Air Corps officer consulting with the Chinese Republic, convinced President Roosevelt to let him recruit and supply a volunteer force of U.S. pilots to defend China's skies. The legendary American Volunteer Group, Flying Tigers were born. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the AVG Flying Tigers. Perhaps you've been concerned with the failure of our schools to teach the history of World War II, the event that literally shaped the world we now live in. Air-to-air-TV.com is a growing archive of World War II history. With this special offer, you can give the gift of history to a student or anyone who will value it for less than a trip to the coffee shop. Just go to air-to-air-TV.com to gain access and to give the gift of knowledge.
At JetGlo, we believe an aircraft is more than aluminum, paint, and rivets. It carries stories. Stories of sacrifice, stories of service, stories of the men and women who stepped forward when our country needed them the most. As a veteran myself, I understand that these aircraft are not just museum pieces. They are flying reminders of the courage, skill, and sacrifice of generations before us. That is why Warbirds in Review matters. Every time one of these machines starts, taxis, and takes to the sky, history becomes real again, not just for pilots, not just for veterans, but for families, young people, and the future generations who need to see it, hear it, and feel it. At JetGlo, we are proud to support the Warbird community, aircraft owners, operators, and the people who work so hard to keep these aircraft flying. We specialize in aviation-only detailing, aircraft appearance and preservation care, bright work polishing, window restoration, ceramic coatings, and condition maintenance, because preserving an aircraft's appearance is part of preserving its legacy. JetGlo is based right here in Oshkosh, and we are proud to support Warbirds in Review. To every veteran, restorer, crew chief, pilot, and volunteer who keeps history alive, thank you. JetGlo is proud to stand with you, because every flight deserves a JetGlo.